'Tis I, your old pal King Chuck, and hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving. I sure did. My mom had us all over at her place, and we had good old turkey and mashed taters, and she even made us 2 pies, pumpkin and apple. Yeah, and yes, I, like any other good person who celebrated Thanksgiving, went home and watched Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. Yes, I love that movie. Steve Martin and John Candy. Of course, Steve proving to the world that, yeah, he can be a bit of a tight ass too towards people who are a little bit different, but especially John Candy's character, who made a living selling shower curtain holders for a living. But hey, they also made some rad earrings as well. Yeah, man. I love the fact that Planes, Trains, and Automobiles is like the penultimate 80s holiday film. All because of everything, it was such an 80s film. Not a cell phone in sight. People still taking taxis instead of Uber. You had people calling the airline instead of going on the app. Oh, man. Life was a little bit different back in 1987. I'll say that. Believe it or not, I know that Planes, Trains, and Automobiles was supposed to be like almost 3 hours, like 2.5, 3 hour film. And then Paramount said, no, we're knocking it down to 90 minutes. And they just cut it. As somebody who is kind of a purist, I mean, I would imagine that if the film was 2.5 hours, it would be very boring. But I'll say this: the film is just timed right. It's about an hour and a half, and you got so much comedy in that time, and of course, lots of memorable performances. You know, it wasn't just Steve Martin and John Candy. You had, of course, Edie McClurg. Remember Edie McClurg? She was the rental car lady. Oh, isn't that a stitch? Gobble gobble. Yeah, you just wanted to punch her face, especially if you were being forced to walk 3 miles to the airport after being stranded. Oh my God. It's like Steve Martin's character had such the worst luck in that film. And let's not forget Ben Stein was in there, even though he only had one line in there telling everyone that the flight's been canceled. Oh man, good old Ben Stein. And even Kevin Bacon, let's not forget, Kevin Bacon was in the film. He didn't even have a line in the film. He just whistled for a taxi. Yeah, let's not forget that. And he, that film was, was so well thought up. I mean, I have to watch it every year. It would be a cardinal sin to not have Thanksgiving without that movie. Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. So, my little movie review. Okay, I got some media stuff to discuss here. Some big news in broadcasting today here in Grand Rapids. One piece of good news is that Tony Gates, longtime morning guy at WLAV, he was a longtime morning guy. Now, we don't know if he was fired or he quit. But anyway, the story was Tony is now at M106.3 in Greenville. He's now the new midday guy, and he made a statement saying that the reason why he's now working there is because he now hates corporate radio. Who could blame him? You know, it used to be that if you went from a major market like Grand Rapids down to like Greenville, which is, 40 miles north of Grand Rapids, I mean, it was a step down. But here's the thing. I noticed that a lot of big market people end up in smaller markets because they hate big markets. They hate the iHeartMedias and the Cumuluses and the Town Squares and all those companies. They want to actually work for somebody who knows your name. And, it's not all about the investors. It's about being one-on-one with the listener. And, and of course, my good friend Darren Gibson works at M106.3. He does, he does a lot of fill-in. He does some, I think he even has a show on there too, where he hosts. It's like a countdown show of some kind. But yeah, he says that he really likes it there at M106.3, and it is kind of, it's kind of sad, what happened to him at 1680 here in Grand Rapids Public Reality Radio. It's hard to believe it's almost been 10 years since all this shit happened between him and management. But Darren at the end of the day had the last laugh because, of course, Bob Goodrich, the owner, ended up being forced to sell pretty much everything he ever owned. Yeah, he ended up bankrupt because of all the bad business decisions he made. And and now the station is owned by Tyrone Bynum, and Tyrone is a fucked up piece of shit asshole who doesn't know the hole from his ass. He doesn't care about the listener one bit. And to prove it, 1680 is off the air most of the time. And by law, 102.5 must be off the air too. But Tyrone doesn't care because he's black. He's playing the race card. He has to have everything that he wants. And it's just too bad that people do pull this shit. I try not to hate on black people, but sometimes it pisses me off when people, want you to feel bad about them because of slavery or because they came from a war-torn country and they feel that they have the right to sit on their fat ass and do nothing. Well, I'm the one, pushing the broom or cleaning the toilet. That's happened to me. But anyway, that's who Tyrone is. And what's laughable is I don't think many people even listen to 102.5. It gets no promotion whatsoever. Like I said, 1680 is off the air most of the time. And if 1680 is off the air, so is 102.5. It has to be under law. But anyway, enough about Tyrone. So anyway, another big news story here in the Grand Rapids region. Tom Hillen, did you hear about him? Very scary shit. Tom Hillen is the longtime traffic guy at Wood TV8. He also co-hosts a show called 8 West, which is on the air at 11 o'clock in the morning. So anyway, he ended up, excuse me, he had a seizure at work a few weeks ago, and he opened up about it, and he said that, he was just having a normal day, and then all of a sudden, he collapsed and was rushed to the hospital. Thankfully, he's doing all right now, and So the story with him is that I have to wonder if he actually had a seizure. Because I had, here's the story. I collapsed many years ago, almost 20 years ago, at Chicago O'Hare Airport. I was rushing to get to my gate, and suddenly I just didn't feel well, and I had to sit down. I remembered I had to sit down, and I just felt weird. And as it turns out, I didn't have anything to eat that day, except for like a candy bar and a pop. And that really, I think that's what did me in. So, anyway, I've been trying to eat healthier ever since that day. So, anyway, I'm wondering, I was told maybe I just didn't have a seizure. It was probably just dehydration, because what happened was, same thing happened to so there was a guy not too long ago, he was a hockey announcer on TV. Same thing happened to him. He collapsed live on the air on camera, and it turned out that he was dehydrated. So, I know. Gotta drink your water, man. You gotta drink plenty of water. Keep yourself hydrated, But yeah, that's the important thing in life. Try to keep hydrated. Keep yourself healthy. So there you go. So, speaking of the media, so one of the reasons why I started the site that is now chuck69.com and Bee-otch of the day. So it was because I was forced to listen to this crappy ass little radio station in northern Michigan called WKLT. They're at 97.5 out of Kalkaska by Traverse City. So KLT, and of course they used to be on 98.9 in Petoskey, and then the station got sold, and so they moved over to 93.5 in the Petoskey and Charlevoix region. And they added on another signal in Sheboygan and Alpena, 96.7. So anyway, Midwestern Broadcasting bought that station. So this is what's going on. I was shocked that KLT did something that's definitely a hell freezes over situation. They actually now have, and I ain't joking, a metal show. Yeah, a metal show. They wouldn't have done this years ago. So the story with KLT is that they were, growing up, KLT was the most anti-metal station on the face of the earth. And the reason why was because of how the station was managed. So the story was, I had a conversation years ago with a former DJ at KLT. And we talked about how shitty the station's music was, and he pointed the finger at one guy, Richard Dills. Richard Dills was the longtime general manager of KLT. He didn't even live in northern Michigan. He personally told me that Richard would would go to Kalkaska, drive around the transmitter site of 97.5. And then he would tell everybody in a meeting, this is our audience. And most of the people around the transmitter site were white trash. They lived in crappy houses, they lived in trailers. Look, Kalkaska is definitely not a town loaded with Phi Beta Kappa people. Okay. And I know because I know people from that region. And we're talking about Kalkaska, Rapid City, South Boardman, Mantucky, as I like to call it, or Kaltucky, Kalkaska, Mansalona, South Boardman, maybe Fife Lake. I think, maybe Fife Lake might be a little bit, I don't know. Because I know it's kind of a vacation spot. So anyway, what happened was, that was what really plagued KLT for a very long time. And Richard Dills would tell everybody, this is our audience. White trash. We don't need to be cool. And because of that and so many other factors regarding KLT management and whatnot, KLT was one of the most critiqued radio stations in the history of rock radio in Michigan. I grew up hating Terry Ray. I think, she was the programming director. Now, there was a rumor, though, that many, many years ago, 25, 30 years ago, Terry actually tried to persuade management into doing a new rock heavy metal show. And they were like, nah, we don't want to scare away our listeners. That's the problem with KLT. They wanted to have the same fucking audience they had since 1982. Okay? Then that was the year they went rock. So that's what happened. KLT had always been the most, the most chicken rock station in the face of the earth. And people would always be like, yeah, and I even remembered when the Zone signed on in 1998. The guy who started the station would even tell the media, yeah, we're not going to be the 9 Inch Nails station. We're not going to be the metal station. Yeah, and guess what happened? The Zone's ratings sucked ass. Until 2000, when their programming director actually told them to grow a pair, and they did. And guess what happened? The Zone kicked KLT's ass in the ratings. So that's what happened. KLT, and I even remember KLT actually had to start playing some newer rock music. I even remembered when they were playing stuff like they actually played 9 Inch Nails, they played Disturbed, they played Alice in Chains, they played, what else did they play? Yeah, they grew up here for a while. But then they realized, but they didn't do it right. Because one minute they'd be playing 9 Inch Nails, and then the next minute they'd be playing like Carry On Wayward Son. It's like, Jesus Christ. What is wrong with you people? Oy vey. So anyway, KLT. So now KLT. Now, of course, I should tell you, the Goki family, which owned KLT for years, they're from North Dakota. They sold KLT to Midwestern Broadcasting, hence all the format, all the station changes and whatnot. 98.9 was actually spun off to a Christian group. So anyway, yeah, they had to because of FCC rules and regulations and stuff. So this is what happened. Midwestern seems to be a little bit more friendlier towards new rock and, from the last 30, 35 years or so than the previous management. And because of that, they were like, yeah, let's put a metal show on KLT. See how that goes. And so I listened on Friday night, and here's my critique. The good. So first of all, the bad. Let's talk about the bad first, actually. The bad is that they do play a lot of stuff that's already on Rock 105 and 95.5. I heard Man in the Box by Alice in Chains. I heard Rage Against the Machine. I heard Seven Dust. I heard, and of course they played a lot of older stuff as well, like Black Sabbath. They played Electric Funeral, which is kind of a deep cut from Paranoid. They played Ace of Spades by Motorhead. They played, they even played some kind of rare stuff as well. They even played Typo Negative, I Love You to Death. Great song from a severely underrated band. Man, God bless Pete Steele. Such a brilliant musician. Had that one of the most phenomenal voices in rock history. It's too bad he died too fucking young. He was only 48 when he died. But he was also, another thing I liked about him was the fact that he was he was a friend to our environment. He actually would go to like parks and pick up litter. And they also played some newer rock. They played the new Megadeth, a song called Tipping Point. Although I think I Don't Care is actually a more superior song. They played Pop, the latest from Poppy. I don't think Rock 105 and 955 has ever played Poppy before. And they also played the latest from a band called Metal Church, which is a band that has been around the block for a long, long time. They also pointed out that they played at Castle Farms a long time ago. Wow. So that's cool. And of course, Finster, who is the morning guy with Omelette, is the host of the show. I noticed that his voice has cleared up a little bit. Last time I heard, his voice sounded like this, kind of. Yeah, he was like doing the... yeah, and I think a lot of it had to do with drugs, maybe that's why he's not doing, he's sounding a lot better these days. I don't know. And Scott Farrell, that's the name I was trying to think of. So anyway, that is the bad. The good, though, like I said, I do like the kind of rare stuff they do play, and I'm glad they're playing some newer stuff too. But to me, the fact that KLT waited 30 fucking years to put a metal show on, to me, to my generation, it's like KLT is like the biological father abandoning their kid growing up. And then the kid grows up, he has another father figure. And of course, to me, it was the station that was the Zone, or Rock 105 and 955. And of course, and to a much bigger extent, Sirius XM. Their rock stations are top notch. And guess what? They did a better job with rock than KLT ever did. And it's amazing that now I look at KLT and they're trying to be like the father that abandoned you as a kid, and now they want to make up for it. And I'm like, you do try. I'll say that. But I wish you were around when I was a kid, when I needed you the most. So, at least you're trying. Okay. So, I want to talk about Bill Simonson. So, today here in Grand Rapids, big news. We just, get this, a brand new radio station just launched here in Grand Rapids called Sports Radio 98.7. And it replaces 98.7 The Grand, which was a classic hit station. They were classic hits and oldies for many, many years. And then today they flipped to sports. And the reason for the flip is because 97.1 in Detroit, very popular radio station, The Ticket, they decided to launch a sports network, and Town Square agreed to put this format on a bunch of their stations. 98.7 is one. 1360 AM WKMI in Kalamazoo is another. they've been down in the dumps and the rains for a long time. WJIM, 1240 AM in Lansing is a new affiliate. Sorry, I had to get a little sip of water in. So, and get this. Up in even Northern Michigan has a station, Grayling. 101.1 WGRY is now a full affiliate of this new network. And, which makes perfect sense because the woman who owns 101.1 in Grayling, her name is Cheryl Coyne, she once worked at 97.1 in Detroit and remained in very good spirits with management down there. So there you go. So the story is now Grand Rapids has not one, not two, but 3 sports stations to choose from. Sports station number 1, of course, is fuddy-duddy old WJRW, 1340 here in Grand Rapids, which also is on 106.1. They carry, it used to be CBS Sports Radio. I don't know what they're called now. And of course, the other station is 96.1, which is Fox Sports Radio. They used to be ESPN. So the story was, is that they dropped ESPN a few years ago and went with Fox Sports. So here's the story. They also added this, get this, they added Bill Simonson. Now, Bill was on either 1340 or 107.3 for many, many years. And so what happened was when 107.3 dropped sports and went with country, while 94.5, which was where Thunder was at, flipped to this AAA format called the Q and brought back the WKLQ call letters. So what happened was Bill obviously was not happy that he was demoted back to AM here in Grand Rapids. And he had no ratings. So he and his management decided to move the show to 96.1. So now that's where the show is perched at. And I'm like, I'll bet you that virtually everybody in Grand Rapids is sick of that fuck. I mean, it's like he is such a whore when it comes to the Grand Rapids elite. I mean, once upon a time, Meyer had his back. The Voss family had his back. And, I even remembered going to Meyer, and they even had a whole section for Bill Simonson's huge show bullshit. T-shirts and jackets and, it's like, what a fucking whore this guy is. I only saw one guy wear a huge shirt at my job, and he was one of the dumbest guys I ever worked with. Yeah, oh my God, this guy pretty much loved everything that Citadel did. And I'm like, fuck Citadel and Matt Hanlon after what they did to KLQ when it was a kick-ass rock station. And then on top of that, what they did to Howard Stern. And yet they put Bill Simonson on a pedestal because he was butt buddies with the Grand Rapids elite like the DeVosses and the Myers. Hell, I would even get cringe if I heard Bill go over, if they, he had these pre-recorded messages. Right here at Meyer, you can go check out the huge section. We have a huge amount of huge crap that you can buy with your money because I am in huge need of your money. So buy me, buy. And that is my huge opinion. I loved it when Eric Zane, when he was with Free Beer and Hot Wings, he trashed those fuckers. Oh my God, he trashed huge. I laughed my ass off. And, there was even a Matt Hanlon impersonation. Yeah. Gotta go. Bankruptcy court time. Yeah, because Hanlon dragged that company into bankruptcy. So, I see that Bill Simonson is now, one of his biggest sponsors now is ABC Warehouse. And I got news for you. I fucking hate ABC Warehouse. So let me tell you what happened. So ABC Warehouse, for those of you outside the state of Michigan, ABC Warehouse is this company that sells furniture, appliances, furniture, TVs, stuff like that. And they also used to sell car radios as well. They used to have a car stereo shop. And the story was they purchased this car stereo company called Mickey Shore a long time ago. Mickey Shore, let me tell you, Mickey Shore was a former disc jockey. He was a disc jockey in Detroit in the 50s. And he lost his job because he got caught up in the payola scandal. He was getting paid $50,000 a year at WXYZ Radio. Lost his job because of payola. He ended up selling pots and pans in Los Angeles. And then he got back into radio in Chicago in management. He started a radio station there that was for women, WSHE. And he claimed the station was the first FM station in Chicago's history to have to actually have ratings, because everything was AM back then. And then what happened was Mickey Shore moved back to Detroit. He actually did swing shift at CKLW. And there's an air check of him somewhere on the internet. And what happened was around that time he started the Mickey Shore car stereo shops. And he did pretty good with them. And it's like the ads for his car stereo shops. Oh my God. He's surrounded by a bunch of young women dressed real sexy. I mean, he probably picked them all up on 8 Mile. And here he is, old gray guy, holding a cigar in his hand, wearing a cap on his head, saying, I went into like 50 different warehouses and bought these car stereos for cheap. We're going to kick everyone's butt. Yeah. Yeah, no BS, no better system. Yeah, that's what he said. So, anyway, let me tell you the sad story about Mickey Shore. So, many years ago, I purchased a car stereo at Mickey Shore's because I had a really shitty one in my car. I drove it in, through the parking lot, and the sound went in and out, in and out. I took it back in. They said, oh, we did an okay job. Drove it again. Same shitty problem. I told them to take it out. I'll go somewhere else. They apologized. Refunded me. Guess where I ended up getting another car stereo from? Circuit City. Down the street. They did a kick-ass job with my car stereo. And they told me the reason why Mickey Shore and ABC Whorehouse, yeah, that's why I like to call them ABC Whorehouse, it's because they didn't put a ground in there. These fuckers didn't know how to install a car stereo. And it happened. So anyway, I bought a computer from ABC Warehouse. The salesman, by the way, was a guy claimed to be a former owner of a Radio Shack. Obviously, he was forced to close it down. He told me, this is a steal for $500. You get more power and more of this and more of that and everything else. The keyboard sucked. I mean, I actually had to buy an external keyboard because the keyboard sucked. It kept the keys stuck. Probably due to poor design. Not only that, it's like every time I download, I went to a website that involved a lot of graphics, it would just slow down. I mean, if I wanted to watch a 60 frames per second video, it didn't want to do that. It's like, what the fuck is wrong with you people? And not only that, the computer fried on me twice. I actually had to send it in for repairs twice. Man. So I learned my lesson. Don't ever buy a fucking computer at ABC Warehouse. Never. And then, when my father and I moved into our house together, we needed a bed for the spare room. They actually had a furniture section. They had a really nice looking bed there. And it said it was like $400. And I'm like, oh my God, we got to get this. The bed came, and then a couple of days later, the bed came. It was only the mattress. Just the fucking mattress. So we actually had to buy a stand for the bed. They gypped us. It's like, yeah, we even called them. They said, yeah, it's just the mattress. It's not the whole bed. Fuck you. So they can't do car stereos right. They can't do furniture right. And they can't do electronics right. And not only that, here's the last story for you. So my dad has a Mustang. 2014 Mustang. Car stereo stops working. We have a Mickey Shores down the street from us. Okay, just a Mickey Shores, no ABC Warehouse attached to it. We go down there. We priced out a car stereo, but we went to a few other places and they were a little bit more. Mickey Shore had the better deal. Well, we got what we paid for because too many times the stereo fucked up. We actually had to call Mickey Shores back again, saying you do it right again, do it right. They actually had to sell us another car stereo. And so anyway, we finally got it installed. And it was like, after they finally got it done right, I drove by the place. They repainted the building, which, by the way, was an old gas station. I want to say it was a former Shell station. Look, it had an old Shell station design. They repainted it black and yellow. Put up a new sign. And then about a few months later, I drive by there. The place was closed. They closed for good. And I'm like, oh my God. These fuckers, it's like they have proven, it's like this company is so fucked up, just like the guy they were named after. And it doesn't shock me that Billy Boy is friends now with ABC Warehouse. And I even went to ABC's, Instagram site. He's doing a show, I think on the 3rd, at one of their locations by Detroit. I don't even think he has an affiliate in Detroit. It's like, what the fuck, man? I mean, I think he once had a Detroit area affiliate. I think the closest one might be Ann Arbor. But who wants to listen to Ann Arbor radio in Detroit? And not only that, back to Lansing a second. So his affiliate in Lansing was 7:30 a.m. He was on at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So now he's been demoted to like 9 o'clock on 7:30 because 7:30 had to shoehorn in some of the shows that WJAM carried, like Dave Ramsey. and the morning show that they had there. Was it Michael Patrick Shields and the other guy? I forgot his name. But, Bill Simonson is nothing more than a loud, obnoxious piece of shit. And it's like a lot of the shit that comes out of his mouth doesn't fucking make sense whatsoever. One thing that pissed me off about him was the fact that a couple of years, many, many years ago, when the war in Iraq and Afghanistan started, people protested against the war, and his words were, "Oh, would you like it in San Francisco if the terrorists took out the Golden Gate Bridge?" Hey, asshole. The World Trade Towers were destroyed because we had an ignorant president who knew it all. It was all about planning for the war over oil. That's what it was. I know that some people had some dignity towards Dick Cheney. I did not. I'm glad the guy is dead. He was an asshole for what he did to America. I should have used the 2000s to build my life, because I was in my 20s back then. But no. I had to put everything on hold because we were back in war again over oil. And not only that, here in Grand Rapids, there were no other, I was lucky to even have a job. Man. Bill, folks, it's amazing how long Bill's been in this market in Grand Rapids. I even remembered when 96.1 actually had a statewide local show based out of Detroit. They actually had more callers out of Grand Rapids than they did Detroit, because it was hubbed at the old WFA. What was it? Detroit's Fan. Yeah, I remember that station. WDFN, I think it was. I'm trying to remember the call sign. But anyway, they actually had more calls from Grand Rapids than they did Detroit. And it was because people in Grand Rapids are tired of Huge. He's nothing more than a mouthpiece for the DeVosses, the Myers, the Lokes family. I know that, that's another reason why I don't go to the movies much anymore, because too many times I go in and they, during the previews, they show an advertisement for Bill Simonson's radio show. I guess he even did his radio show at Celebration Cinema at one point. A couple of times. Because they were in cahoots with Citadel. The point is, folks, is that people in Grand Rapids don't like Huge. Because he only cares about the wealthy. He only cares about the wealthy. He's butt buddies with Hanlon. Here's the thing, folks. Hanlon even sold his house to Huge. That's how close they were. And of course, Hanlon, thank God, is not in the radio business anymore because of the fact that, he got fired from Citadel after he bankrupted the company. And then he ended up at Town Square. And at Town Square, he got fired from that because he got busted for drunk driving. Almost killed an old family, an old couple. The point is, folks, is that, the only reason why Bill Simonson is still on the air is because, in a way, it's a convenience. He does talk about local sports. He does talk about the stuff in Detroit and whatnot. But people deserve better. And I kind of love the idea of this 97.1 Detroit Sports Network. And I hope it is very successful. Now, don't get me wrong. There have been statewide talk networks in the past, talk and sports networks, and they didn't do very well. Remember Michigan Talk Radio Network from about 25 years ago? I loved MTRN. that's what introduced me to Dave Barber. Dave and I became close pals. And unfortunately, Dave quit MTRN because they weren't paying him. Ditto with Bill the Captain Vogel. All these people quit because the guy who owned it, well, they weren't paying them. But yeah, that's why he ended up having to sell MTRN. I don't know who owns it now. But anyway, I know that I think they have a hand in distributing the huge dumbass. And not only that, Bill loves to go after people who attack him. The truth is, folks, is that, I even remembered years ago on the Buzz board, he threatened to sue the guy who owns the Buzz board, Mark Worth, because, and that's the reason why you can't even say the word huge on the Buzz board anymore. It was because a Citadel employee tried to send, I think the story, I'm trying to remember what happened. There was some kind of letter that was sent out to everybody saying, don't say anything about Bill or whatever. Bill is a very thin-skinned individual. And there's a good reason why. It was because he got fired pretty much everywhere he worked at before he came to Grand Rapids. He worked at a station in Austin. He got fired from it because, as a matter of fact, he cost the station he worked at, KGFK, by the way, which, by the way, was also a Howard Stern affiliate, $400,000 because he slandered a woman on the air saying that she ran around showing everyone her boobs. And, and what happened was, it turns out she was also a Sunday school teacher. Oh, God. And then, on top of that, he got fired from a station in Tulsa because I guess he used a racial slur against a coach. He got fired from WMVP in Chicago, AM 1000, because he had no rating, so he ended up in Grand Rapids. And they basically tried to make him a superstar in the city. But guess what? Nobody likes him, and the ratings prove it. You see, I hope to God that this, 98.7 Sports Talk does very well. Because people in Grand Rapids need a better alternative, in terms of sports than that fat blob. Huge. I mean, it's true, folks. He's a puker of a human being, and it shows, And I know. So, fingers crossed. I hope that, and I know some people are like, well, what works in Detroit doesn't necessarily work in Grand Rapids. That's not always true. I know there's even some Chicago folks here in Grand Rapids. So, that's what I'm hoping. I hope that this will add a few more nails to the huge coffin. Because we are hugely tired of huge. So, there you go. All right, folks. I best get running. I'll talk to you later. Good day. Good luck. Keep up with the fight.